All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, in a shocking trade here in the heart of the NBA Finals, the Memphis Grizzlies are sending guard Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic in exchange for 5 first-round picks. Four of those are unprotected, along with Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell Pope. Now, I don't know what was more shocking about the trade. The fact that the Grizzlies are trading Bane, or the fact that the Magic were willing to part with four unprotected first round picks. But nonetheless, Orlando does appear to be all in for 2026. But is the acquisition of Bane going to be enough? Steve P, what's going on, man? As always, it's a pleasure. Thanks for chiming in, man. Um, it's one of those where you look at Orlando squad, man. You've got Paolo Banchero, and of course, he was a high pick several years ago, and he's a budding star for this team. You've got Franz Wagner, and then you've also got Jalen Suggs. And remember, Jalen Suggs might be a forgotten guy right now. Why? Because he only appeared in 35 games last year due to knee surgery. Okay, so you got to look at it and say, how does Bane fit into this team? I think Bane is going to fit in great with Orlando, in my opinion. He's a veteran, a young veteran. He's seen his fair share of battles in the playoffs. He's a physical guard. He's going to bring an edge. He's going to bring some toughness to this Orlando team that, in my opinion, um, that they need. Okay, that's just my 2 cents there. You look at Orlando; they won the Southeast Division last year by default. Steve, I haven't forgotten you on that theme song, man. Thanks for reminding me, though, man. But nonetheless, you look at Orlando; they won the Southeast Division. I know a lot of people don't really think about divisions championships as much as they used to in the NBA, but nonetheless, Orlando was the top team in that division. They won it by default. They were 41 and 41. Okay, so they still weren't good enough to be a top six team in the Eastern Conference, but nonetheless, they got out of the play-in tournament, and they lost to Boston in 5 games before bowing out. But nonetheless, you look at this move with the acquisition of Bane, and of course, anytime that you're going to make a move of this magnitude, and it's not just bringing in Desmond Bane, it's also what you're parting with. All of those unprotected first round picks, you have to ask yourself, is this going to be enough to help Orlando get to that next level? Is that going to be enough to help Orlando be one of the top teams in the East? And this is pivotal because you look at it, the Magic have a lot of young talent there. Okay. But this is still a franchise that has not gotten past the first round of the playoffs since 2010. And if you're Orlando, you're hopeful that that's going to change there. Now, of course, the salaries of Cole Anthony and KCP basically match up with Desmond Bain. So those cancel each other out. But you've got to go out there and make this work. I think Orlando has improved. And of course, a lot of it comes down to keeping everybody healthy. But nonetheless, I would still like to see Orlando go out there and get themselves a point guard. But I'm just wondering, with everything that they just gave up, to go out there and get Desmond Bain, how many more assets do they have to possibly go out there and get themselves a point guard? That's going to be interesting. It's still too early to see where Orlando's going to fit into things in the East. I definitely think that they're going to be improved. I know a lot of people already are wanting to write the Celtics off somewhat due to the fact of the Jason Tatum injury that we just saw in these NBA playoffs. Okay. But nonetheless, I do think that there's going to be more player movement this summer. Okay, and like I've been talking about this for a while now, that additional luxury tax apron is going to be a game changer, and I think we're going to see more moves. So we have to see how everything plays out for all teams around the National Basketball Association. But nonetheless, from the Memphis aspect of this trade, what does this trade say about the future of the Grizzlies? And you got to ask yourself, 'cause hypothetically, are John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. next to be sent out of town? I personally don't know, but I feel like this. I don't know what Memphis is doing, but more importantly, I don't think that Memphis themselves knows what they're doing. This is a front office that has just been making questionable move after questionable move, after questionable move. And I think the biggest thing for me, in my opinion, is the fact that the Grizzlies don't have basketball people running things anymore. You look at the Grizzlies right now, and you look at what this team was just 3 years ago. The Grizzlies won 56 games. They were one of the top teams in the Western Conference. And a lot of people felt, well, Memphis was going to be that next up and coming team. And so much has changed in those 3 years. Of course, Dylan Brooks is no longer there. Some people feel like it was time for Memphis to move on from him. Some people feel like it wasn't. Okay. Of course, the biggest surprise this past season, with just a couple of games left in the regular season, the front office made the decision to part with Taylor Jenkins as their head coach, in spite of the fact that the Grizzlies had a 44-29 record. And of course, Memphis bowed out very quietly in the first round to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now you see the Desmond Bane move, and it's just perplexing because if you're Memphis, A, you're not getting better by trading Desmond Bane. B, you're not getting better by bringing in Cole Anthony and KCP. And it's like, we don't know what those picks are going to turn out to be. I'm not here to say Desmond Bane is a superstar. No, don't get me wrong. That's why I'm perplexed about the fact that Orlando was willing to part with 4 first-round picks for him. But nonetheless, from Memphis' standpoint, I simply don't get what they're doing. It's one of those where you can ask yourself who won this trade, and it's going to be a wait and see mode for me because I feel like Orlando gave up too much to get Bane, and I just feel like I just don't get it from Memphis' standpoint. I think what we're seeing right now, currently in the NBA, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't have basketball people running all of these front offices anymore. I feel like teams are giving up too much, for guys who are not stars. Okay, I've watched sports for long enough to know that typically when a team, regardless of the sport, is willing to give up 4 first-round picks, they're giving up a guy who is going to be a game changer. Desmond Bane will improve the Orlando Magic. Is Desmond Bane a guy that's going to like that you're going to bring in and say, "Hey, this is what we need to get over the top to get us a championship"? Absolutely not. So I really want to see what the next move for Orlando is. I think this is a move that improves them, yes, and I think they have what it takes to be at least top five in the Eastern Conference next season. But it still comes down to everybody being on the same page. And also, more importantly, it comes down to everybody being healthy. Paulo Banchero missed 36 games this past season. I talked about Jalen Suggs only appearing in 35 games. And then, of course, Franz Wagner only appeared in 60 games as well. So, nonetheless, you've got to get everybody healthy for next season if you are Orlando and you want to go out there and expect to take that next step. Like I said, this is going to be a very interesting summer around the National Basketball Association. I know the new league year kicks off right around the 4th of July, and typically where you are expecting fireworks, the NBA is going to provide fireworks, and the NBA in most recent years has been providing fireworks around the 4th of July holiday when their new league years begins, as there is typically a bevy of moves. I think some of the moves that people are anticipating aren't going to happen, and some of the moves that people are not anticipating are going to happen, i.e., this Desmond Bane trade. I think one move that is going to happen clearly, I think Kevin Durant is going to, pursue his career someplace else other than Phoenix for next season. It's just a matter of where that's going to be. But like I said, there's going to be a bevy of player movement this summer around the NBA. And this is one right here that is a shocker. in my opinion. I don't know what the Grizzlies are doing. I like the aggressiveness of Orlando, but at the same time, I still feel like they gave up too much for a guy who will improve them. Yes, okay, but he's not going to be a guy that, like, if you're Orlando and you're saying, okay, we want to win a championship, he's not going to be a guy that's going to get you there. They still need more. Like I said, they still need a point guard. So let's see what the Magic do from here following their acquisition of Desmond Bane. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Steve P, I have not forgotten you, man. My apologies for the delay. I have been so busy, but I definitely will take care of that for you. And of course, everybody, if you like what you heard and you saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. That also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. You can also check us out on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Well, basketball fans, I don't know if we're going to have one game left in this season or we're going to have two games left. It depends on what happens in Game 6 of between Indiana and OKC. But nonetheless, the NBA draft is right around the corner. And like I said, the start of free agency. And like I said, there's going to be a bevy of trades and signings. So like I said, there's going to be plenty to talk about. So stay tuned to this channel as I try to get as much covered as possible. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.